All right, here we are. Two non-critics are back a week later. We're a little delayed. Illness on my part, work on his part. Who are we? I'm non-critic Dustin. With me, as always, from Hawaii is...
Non-critic Will, what up?
and we're, as I always say, we're two lifelong friends and film buffs with very different tastes, trying to expose each other. That sounds bad. Trying to share movies. Anyway.
Ladies and gentlemen, real quick, I think this is my first video. I'm wearing my glasses because I'm actually blind. Let's go.
Oh, you're right. You usually don't wear your glasses. I didn't think of that.
I'm going to get that LASIK surgery, though, for free.
Come on, man.
It's for free.
Cool, right?
It's for free. It's for free. Since I'm in the military, it's for free.
You should get the LASIK and still wear the glasses.
That'd be cool. I mean, they gotta run some tests to see if my corneas are thick enough so they can take off a layer.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not thick enough, they're gonna blind me. They're like, "Hey, how much did you really like your eyes?"
So tonight we have a Kyle Maclachlan double feature, as it says.
Double whammy.
Last week we talked about Children of Doom, which brought up the discussion of David Lynch's Doom, which starred Kyle Maclachlan. And all the talk about David Lynch got me thinking, I want to introduce Will to some David Lynch, because David Lynch is by far one of my favorite directors. And I think a good entry point into the world of Lynch is, of course, the cult classic Blue Velvet. I got introduced to David Lynch about 7 or 8 years ago from a coworker of mine who was obsessed with him, and I quickly fell down the rabbit hole of Lynchland. Anyway, go ahead, talk about the film, summarize it a bit, and let's go.
Okay, Blue Velvet. Well, the main character in Blue Velvet is Kyle Maclachlan. He plays a character named Jeffrey Beaumont. Jeffrey Beaumont recently came back to his, I believe his father's home, because his father recently had a stroke, if I'm not mistaken. His father had a stroke. So he came home with concerns and whatnot. And he started hearing there was something going on with this lady, this woman named Dorothy. Some strange, mysterious things that he has to go through this detective for. The detective, he has a daughter named Sandy. Sandy, now here's some scandalous stuff, because Sandy has a boyfriend. But throughout the movie, there starts to become a certain love interest between Jeffrey and Sandy. But that's kind of irrelevant to the main. It's not. Yeah, it's kind of relevant to the main part of the story. It's pretty much. It's a mystery. The movie is a mystery. You're trying to figure out what's going on with this mystery woman named Dorothy that works at this nightclub, and she sings a specific song called "The Blue Velvet." You find out that Dorothy is having to do these certain sexual favors for a certain man named Frank. Frank is a sadistic, crazy, evil, sad, depressed, lonely child in a man's body. Pretty much. I mean, that's what I got from it. The reason why she's doing these things for Frank is because Frank has Dorothy's daughter. I mean, well, Dorothy's child, Dorothy's son and husband kidnapped. So I guess she's just meeting his needs because she wants to make sure that her son and husband are safe and sound. Now, the way that Jeffrey plays into this is because Jeffrey was actually trying to investigate, and he ended up getting he ended up stealing without her looking a spare key to her house. Once he gets to her house, there's it's a very famous scene where he ends up hiding in the closet of her bedroom because she comes home early. And when he's hiding in the closet, she hears him. She hears him, and she threatens to kill him. She has a knife. She's threatening to kill him, and instead, this is where it gets weird. It turns into it's about to get real weird. It turns into a whole sexual. It just turned into a whole sexual weird scene where it's like you get pleasure out of pain. I don't want to spoil the movie for anybody, so I'm just gonna say it's a bunch of weird shit dealing with sex and dealing with violence and just sadistic acts. It's a really fucked up movie. And the guy that the character Frank that's actually holding Dorothy's husband and son hostage, he's played by Dennis Hopper. So need I say more? Mm-hmm. Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper is that weird sadistic little boy that probably didn't get hugged by his mom and dad enough that turned into this piece of. Mm-hmm. But anyway.
So what's your overall impression of the movie? What did you think? I mean, it's weird, it's sadistic, but how did you feel about the movie?
Okay, well, for me, I felt very, aside from weird and sadistic shit, I felt very, I felt concerned for the character, for Dorothy's character, because she was, it turned from a point where she was only doing this for her family to where she started liking the abuse. Because one of the things, without trying to spoil it, is like when she gets into an aroused state, she likes pain. She likes to be hurt while having sexual encounters. And the main character, Jeffrey, Kyle Maclachlan, was just the right guy to do the job. So I became very concerned about Dorothy's character because it doesn't really specify how long that her son and husband were taken by Frank. It doesn't really specify, but she starts to like the abuse. She starts to like being hurt while aroused at the same time. The movie itself, it was a very interesting movie. I find myself a lot of times when I'm watching a movie, I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, you just really like, what the fuck? Like, really? Like, a lot of times you question the movie, like, is this really happening right now? Or is this maybe a flashback or a dream or a memory? So, overall, though, with the movie itself, I liked it. I thought it was interesting. It was a different take on what I normally watch, which is why now Critic Dustin had me watch this because he knows I don't usually watch shit like that. But yeah, it was very interesting. I felt for Dorothy, like I said. I didn't really feel much for Jeffrey, for the main character. I really didn't, because Jeffrey's character, he's just, for me, he seemed like one of those characters that you think is a good, upstanding guy, does everything that's right, but behind closed doors, he wants to see that he wants to go into that strange world. He wants to see something different from the norm that he's used to, because he wasn't forced into any of this. He kept going back because of his arousal for this mysterious woman and her mysterious ways. So I wasn't really that interested in Jeffrey, just because he was just like a curious little boy. So
that's pretty good way to put it. Here's the thing with David Lynch in general, and this is why I think Blue Velvet is a good entry point, because it balances the surrealism of David Lynch with his storytelling elements as well. It has a lot of moments that are very, very surreal. People like to say dream-like. It's not quite as intensely surreal as, say, Eraserhead or Lost Highway or even Mulholland Drive, which is another great movie. But it does have a narrative through line. I think the weirdest thing about this movie is it's not as weird as you think it is at first. When you see it the first time, you're sort of blown away by how intense it is, by how sort of quirky it is, a little funny at the same time, but yet very violent, very sexual, and all of that at once is sort of overwhelming.
yes,
But now that I've given it another view, and I actually haven't seen it in a couple of years, I had this whole new take on the movie, which is it's a pretty average movie, meaning it has a 3-act structure of its own. The character has an arc to it. It has a goal, and he sets it. So it has very conventional framework, but it's the content that is strange and off-putting to a lot of people. And the thing is, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just want to say one of the things that for any movie, any book, it's not just dealing with movies, but even book, any movie or any book, you have to have something in there at the beginning that will hook you and keep you attentive, keep you interested in the film or the book or the writing. That's with everything. That's with every movie, every book. You have to have something that's going to hook the audience and make them be like, you know what, I want to keep watching or I want to keep reading. Now, for me, it was actually at the very beginning, because at the beginning there's a scene. I believe it is his father, Jeffrey's father, when he starts to have the stroke while he's spraying the grass. He has the hose and he's just watering the grass or whatever like that, and he has a stroke. And the way he has a stroke, and it looks like the hose is choking him, and then the dog just gets on top of him and just starts barking and just happy as hell. Like I was just like, what the fuck? What is going on here? Why is this scene relevant to the movie? But that's something that made me want to continue watching the very beginning. The reason why I'm saying this is because if you have a strong beginning, a strong hook, it'll keep the audience watching or reading, and that's the whole reason why it kept me watching. Because I'm just like, why the fuck did that happen? Who is that guy?
Right, and I was going to say is that opening scene actually tells you everything you need to know about the movie. Because it begins in a very postcard perfect town. The fire engine coming by and the fireman waving at the camera, and it's playing Blue Velvet, and then everything looks perfect in small town suburbia, and then he has a stroke, and he falls into mud instead of on grass, which I thought was very interesting. And he falls into the mud. The dog comes up. You have that little baby coming out, and it's this thing of contrast. And then the camera moves down into the grass, into the soil, to where there's just all these disgusting insects just underneath the surface. And that's what the entire film is about. The movie is about what is just underneath the surface. Everything appears normal. Jeffrey himself appears to be this just perfect college kid coming back home to visit his poor dad, but then even he realizes that underneath he's got a little bit of deviancy. And I think, a lot, like you described it as a mystery. A lot of people describe it as a mystery. But when you think about it, the mystery of the movie is solved a little under halfway through the film.
Okay.
I really think the movie is it's an exploration of urges.
Yeah.
You have the character of Frank, who's a character who just has no boundaries, goes after whatever he wants, and he's got the gas tank he's sucking down. He's got his little buddies who follow him around and do whatever he says. He's got this woman at his beck and call. He can do whatever he wants. And then you have Jeffrey, who's kind of from this perfect small town, and you get the feeling that his life has always been a certain way. And then he finds an ear.
Yeah.
And this ear sends him on this into what's just beneath the surface, and he starts to learn about himself.
Yeah.
And he starts to see. It feels like he's at battle with himself throughout the film because he's got Laura Dern's character, who he likes very much, and she is the perfect embodiment of what that town is. And then he's got Isabella Rossellini's character, who
Dorothy
is the perfect embodiment of what he doesn't know. And so I think that's why he becomes fascinated with it, because he's experiencing what's beneath the surface. And watching it this time, I became really, really invested in what he's going through, watching that internal battle happening. And something else, with David Lynch, this was the original point I was going to make, he doesn't make films that tell you anything. There's never a point where a character sits down, looks at the camera, and says, "This is what all of this means." He uses symbolism. He uses character expressions. He uses sound. He creates an atmosphere that you, as the viewer, can interpret and infer your own personal meaning from it. I'm sure when he made Blue Velvet, he knew what it was about. He knew what every shot was about. He had it all planned in his head. But he doesn't make it specifically so that you watch it and you see the same thing he sees. He wants you to see your own film. And that blows my mind.
One thing I did want to say about the internal battle that Jeffrey has with the life that he knows, the perfect life, and then that hidden life, keyword hidden, that's what we're going to talk about. But that hidden life that he has, that hidden world that he wants to explore, because he wants to see how deep he can go, how dark he can be. What are his limitations? What are his boundaries? This is a spoiler, but there is a certain scene where he's having sex with Dorothy, and like I said before in the beginning, that she's the type that likes physical pain. So she's been constantly begging him to hit her, to abuse her, to hit her while they're having sex. And he constantly refuses until he finally gives in. He gives in because she starts pushing him away, and she's just begging him and screaming. She's begging him, and he ends up like backhanding her and hitting her. And you can see a subtle smile on her face because she's pleased. But then you see him, and he's crying. He's sad. He feels heartbroken for what he's doing, because this is out of his comfort zone. This is not who he is, or is it? And he's just discovering something about himself that he never knew he had. So that's why I'm talking about the internal struggle, the internal battle within himself to find out who he really is as Jeffrey Beaumont.
Yeah, absolutely. And along with that, I want to talk about Frank for a second, because Frank is easily one of the most disgusting characters ever put on film,
Yep.
and rightly so. He should be. And what I found really interesting this time around while watching is that you can see a movie where you have a villain whom you know nothing about,
Mm-hmm.
and you just don't give a shit about him. And then you have a character, say like the Joker in The Dark Knight, whom you know nothing about. But nothing about him feels random.
Yeah.
And that's why the character works. A lot of times you'll have, like Darth Vader in Star Wars, you know just enough about him in that first movie to be intimidated by, right? But then you can have something like, oh God, nothing's coming to mind all of a sudden. But I have seen plenty of movies, like action movies and things, where the villain is just a stock villain whom you know nothing about, and you don't care. This is, in my mind, the perfect example of how to do a villain right. Because Frank never talks about his past. There's never a moment where they sit down and say, look, this is where Frank came from. This is why he's so demented. You have to watch the character. Every movement, everything he says, you understand there's something there. And as an audience member, like I was making up an entire biography of this guy while I was watching the movie. Like you said, he probably wasn't loved by his parents. I had this idea that he probably watched his dad beat the crap out of his mom, or maybe not even his dad, probably just like random boyfriends.
Or maybe he was like molested by his father.
There's that too. I mean, there could be anything. And this is why David Lynch films, they send you down this rabbit hole, because he shows you just enough for you to infer this entire world.
David Lynch films, I mean, from what I've seen with Blue Velvet, David Lynch films, it's kind of like you said earlier, he wants you to have your own interpretation. He wants your own mind to run wild instead of having a set course on, oh, okay, this is why this guy or this girl is like this. This is why this is happening. He wants you to create that imagination in your head.
Right.
Because the imagination, the wonder that we create in our head is the one that best fits us.
Mm-hmm.
It makes the most sense. So when somebody else says something different, we're just like, I don't think it was like that. It's something that has to suit you. So for me, at the beginning, for me to say, oh, he's a sadistic, spoiled, not even spoiled. I said he's a sadistic, sad, depressed little boy in a man's body that probably wasn't loved by his mother or father. That makes sense to me because he's doing this stuff as an adult. That makes sense to me. But to the next person, it's just like, no, I'm pretty sure he had a happy life.
Yeah,
pretty sure he had a happy, and he just snapped. Different interpretation. Like you and I, not saying this is your opinion, but you and I could say that about Frank's Dennis Hopper's character. I can say that. You could say, no, he probably had a happy life, raised well, mother and father stayed together, this and that, but he got tired of that and wanted to see something different.
Mm-hmm. And that's equally valid.
Mm-hmm. I'm just saying that's where the difference comes into play. So it's up to your own interpretation.
Right, absolutely. And there's a right way to do that and a wrong way to do that. This is the right way to do it, I think. And I don't think film needs to have rules, but if your film establishes rules, the one rule is you have to stick with that. And the rule in this film is David Lynch is not going to spell anything out. Yeah, he gives a little exposition so you can follow the plot. But in terms of character motivations, especially with Frank's character, Isabella Rossellini, I don't know if she's particularly is just the kind of person who enjoys pain. Those people exist. I think she has Stockholm Syndrome. I think that Frank has been doing this to her for so long, she doesn't know how to experience pleasure or know how to feel appreciated without getting smacked. But, someone else could see it and say, she's just this way. Now, an example of how not to do that is Prometheus. You watch Prometheus,
Oh
and
yeah.
they just leave shit out for no reason.
Yeah.
They don't give you like subtle little hints or clues to certain things. They're like, we're not going to tell you this, and then it's good luck. You know what I mean? Like
Have fun.
there's ambiguity, and then there's just being myopic and bullshitting.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, I'm going to start repeating myself like crazy here, but that's what David Lynch does. You can just talk about him forever, and I mean, I feel like we haven't even scraped the surface of the movie because there's a whole new interpretation of it that I just read today because I was just reading different ideas about it, where something I didn't notice, but then once I read this, it just clicked. You notice when he finds the ear,
Yeah.
the camera goes into the ear canal, and the camera doesn't come back out until the very end. Now, the ear is an entry point into the mind. If you look at it, it's an entry point in the brain. So he goes into below the surface into the mind, and at the very end, once spoiler I guess, but at the very end there's a shot where Kyle Maclachlan is just kind of leaning back in his chair, and then the camera begins on his ear and pulls out, and then comes back into the world, and it's when that happened. When I was watching it, I was feeling this great elation because all of the darkness of the film had finally gone. And I hadn't noticed that until I read that. And the significance of the robin holding the bug at the end. I remember I saw that and I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then today I was just thinking about it. And I was like, oh, yeah, the robin is supposed to represent love. And the beetles sort of represent the darkness underneath, or death and decay, and the robin has conquered that. And so it's Kyle Maclachlan has been to the darkness. He's been to the edge of who he is, and discovered that he's over it now. Kind of is how I look at it. He's because when you're young, you go through these dark times where you do stupid things and you push your limits, and then hopefully you come back from it. Otherwise, you turn into Frank.
What a character Frank is.
Also, something I had fun doing while I was rewatching it. In Clerks, there's a scene where you first meet Jay and Silent Bob, and Jay, he's just being Jay, and he's like, I'm gonna fuck this bitch, I'll fuck anything that moves. So the whole time I was imagining, what if Frank is actually Jay's father from Jay and Silent Bob? And he's just like, he just has the scene where they Ben and he sings he sees prostitutes in the world. He's wearing like this white makeup. It feels like it could all be random, but it all makes sense at the same time for some reason. And it reminds me of how people in this moment where you drink too much and you don't know when and highs when you're like, this guy's house. And then you go there and you realize, I should not be here. There are just weird things happening here I want nothing to do with. And that's what that scene felt like to me. But I just imagined that one of those really nasty hookers there, Frank slept with one of them, and she ended up having a kid, and that kid was Jay. Anyway, after this, do you think you would visit more David Lynch?
Yes, because David Lynch films, from what I've seen, they make you, they open up your mind. They make you question what you see as the norm. They make you want to look deeper inside yourself, and of course, in the movie to see like what really makes this character tick. What are their true intentions? Why do I see this as weird, strange, evil, instead of looking at it as good, pleasurable, or fulfilling. So I would definitely still watch some more David Lynch movies just so I can broaden my horizons, open up my mind to the other side. Because kind of just like Jeffrey's character, you can say it about yourself, about your own personality. Like, what are your limits? And it's not just it's not per se just as the going to a darker side of you, but just any side. What are your limits to how far you will go to see what you can become? So I would definitely watch more David Lynch movies. Yes.
Fantastic. You should watch Mulholland Drive, not for the show, just to watch it, because I think that movie is probably the closest to Blue Velvet of all his films. It's got a very Blue Velvety vibe to it, but that movie gets weird. But I think it's amazing. Anyway, so moving on to our next film, 1987's The Hidden, also starring Kyle Maclachlan. And this was Will's suggestion. Why did you suggest it?
The Hidden, like I said, is a 1986 film. Same. He's one of the main characters, Kyle MacLachlan. The reason why I chose this film was because I seen this film when I was very young. Didn't really understand the concept of it. It's a science fiction / horror film. I just knew it scared shit out of me, but I still watched it. Like, I was one of those kids where this is scary, but I have to watch still. Yeah, real weird. But I chose this movie just because of nostalgia. You know, I seen this when I was very young, and I always wondered how point A got to point B, and why these situations happened in between. It's a movie that never left my mind. It's one of the first. It's probably no. It's not one of. It's the first movie that I've seen Kyle MacLachlan in. So when Critic Dustin and I were talking about Dune last week, once at the end when we talked about the film, the 1980s film Dune with Kyle MacLachlan as the main character, it just sparked up. Like, I know him from The Hidden. That's where I first met this actor, was from The Hidden. So I asked non-critic Dustin, has he seen it? He said no, so that's why I wanted him to see it, because then also it's going to enforce me to watch it too, to just rekindle old feelings on the movie. Mm-hmm. So non-critic Dustin, if you could summarize what the movie was about.
That'll be very easy.
I think that'd be very easy.
The Hidden, as he said, is a 1980s sci-fi, horror, action, everything movie. It's a B movie, directed by Jack Sholder. I think that's how you say his name. Who directed what is perhaps the worst Nightmare on Elm Street sequel until the remake, which was Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And
which is on Netflix.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's on Netflix. It recently popped on Netflix.
And I mean, that movie could have been really good, given if they had explored the homosexual subtext, which really isn't subtext. But this guy, Jack Sholder, claims he had no idea of the homosexual subtext of the movie, when it seems pretty obvious to me. But anyway, The Hidden is what we're focusing on.
Yeah.
And it's basically it's one of those films that I think came about because somebody saw The Terminator and somebody saw The Thing, and they decided they want to do that. And what I mean by that is, there's a thing, an alien thing, that moves from body to body. It doesn't imitate the body, it uses it as a host. So in that way, it's kind of a pod movie, very similar to Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but it's only this one thing. which lives to, very much like Frank in Blue Velvet, lives to the extreme. It explores it fulfills its urges. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but why Terminator 2? You said also Terminator.
Oh yeah, I'll get there.
Okay.
So it lives to explore its urges, and its urges apparently are to rob things, to shoot things, and to listen to loud punk music. And the film there's a thing. It's an alien in Terminator. It's a robot that comes to our time or our world, and then another thing from another world comes to stop it. Terminator, you have a machine comes from the future into the past to kill a lady, and then a guy from the future comes to the past to stop it. Now, you got Terminator, which I'm convinced spawned Highlander, an immortal, and then a guy comes to kill the immortal. These two things that are not part of, that you would not associate as part of this world, show up. Anyway, so it's a thing that happened in the 80s. Go ahead.
No, I didn't want to cut off your summary. I'm just saying, it's like two alien races. When you put it in the simplest form, like you were saying, it's something else from like the future. It's just pretty much two different alien races.
No. I was saying the Terminator's from the future.
Yeah.
This is alien, but what I'm saying is something other than what is of our world.
Yes.
Now is here doing bad things, and something else that is not of this
our world
is coming to do good things by stopping the bad things. That's all. It's
true.
Basically
very true.
Bad guy who's not one of us doing bad things. Good guy who's not one of us coming to stop it. That's all. And so anyway, Kyle Maclachlan is another alien, a good alien, who comes in the form of an FBI agent to stop it. That's pretty much it. Yes, Gallagher. That's he partners up with a local cop, and they have a bit of a lethal weapon buddy cop thing where they go to try to hunt this guy down. And that's pretty much it. And my impressions of the film is it's not bad. It's entertaining enough. It's one of those movies that is what it is, and what it is a B movie.
Okay. It's
there to entertain, and that's what it does. And at no point did I feel particularly invested in anybody. I was sort of blown away that the first 40. It's basically a 45-minute car chase. I mean, it starts off with a dude blowing people away and robbing a bank. He drives away in a car. They chase him for 40. I mean, they don't literally chase him for 45 minutes. They chase him for about 5 minutes, and then he gets put in the hospital and he transfers a new thing. But what I mean is they're constantly chasing this alien as he switches from body to body, car to car, thing to thing, and so they're chasing him. And actually I checked, at the 1 hour and 2 minute mark is when they actually say, by the way, this is the movie you've been watching for the last hour. When Kyle Maclachlan sort of explains things. Now, that was a problem for me. I mean, you had already prepped me up a little bit. I already knew what was going on because you sort of told me what it was. But I was imagining watching this movie, not realizing that what the premise was, and just going, what the fuck is happening in this movie? I had the same problem when I saw Underworld, because Underworld, for the first 45 minutes, it's just people being chased, monsters showing up and fighting, and then they're finally like, oh, this is why these people are chasing me 45 minutes later. I mean, that Terminator has a bit of that, but the thing, and I mentioned that for a reason. The thing is, Terminator takes a brief break early on in the film to introduce Sarah Connor. You see enough of her life that you're invested in her, and so you don't really necessarily care about what's going on, just like, is she going to be okay, is what you worry about. And this movie did not do that. Until about 45 minutes in, there's a scene where Kyle Maclachlan goes to, what's the other cop's name?
Beck, Sergeant Beck, Thomas Beck.
They go to his house, and he meets his family. And you say, okay, this cop's a family man. But until that point, you didn't really know anything or care anything about him. And I also got confused because up until that point, Kyle Maclachlan knows about police procedure. He knows how to drive a car. He knows how to shoot the tires on a car, but he doesn't know how to use a fork. And he doesn't know how to use the simple question of where do you come from, or he doesn't really know how to drink from a bottle. So I was like, all right. I mean, I know they're trying to let you know that something's off about him, but I mean, these are really nitpicks. Overall, the movie was pretty entertaining as just this wild ride of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, well then, okay. Well, my question is, number one, there is a sequel, which, spoiler for us, I'm going to have him watch that. I'm going to have him see that for next week, and we're going to talk about it next week. There is a sequel, ladies and gentlemen. There's only 2 parts. There's no trilogy. It's just 2 parts. But how are your feelings about watching the sequel, number one?
I'm interested just to see how they do a sequel. I mean, it's not. I don't know. I'm interested in seeing how they handle it.
Yeah. Do you feel that was a good role played by Kyle Maclachlan? Since this is Kyle Maclachlan week.
I guess. I mean, he looked and felt like an alien. I don't think he had much. That's the thing. No one in this movie had much of a character to play. They just filled plot roles.
Yeah.
Kyle Maclachlan is playing the guy who's coming to stop the other guy. That's his name. And the cop, Beck, is the cop who gets things explained to him so that we as the audience understand what's happening.
Yeah.
And his family is his family so that we know he's a human being. And, I mean, no, I actually like Beck, the actor. I think he played that role fairly well.
Yeah.
And not that there was much of a character there, but he felt like a cop to me. You know, you felt the weight of the daily grind that cops have.
Kind of seemed like a 48 hours type of cop. Like he was like Nick Nolte's character.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Except not as dirty.
Yeah. That just reminds me of like Nick Nolte's character in 48 Hours.
Actually, now that you mention it, this movie is kind of an amalgamation of 80s movie tropes. You have aliens, which there are a lot of alien movies in the 80s. You have the buddy cop, which there are a ton of buddy cop movies in the 80s. You had car chases, and you had strippers, which, oh man, I can't remember her name all of a sudden. I put it in the description, I believe. Claudia Christian, I think her name is. A stripper in it. It was interesting seeing her in that because I'm familiar with her from Babylon 5.
Oh yeah.
And I remember I saw an interview with her, and she seemed hilarious in the interview. Apparently, she has a memoir that talks about all the dirty, nitty-gritty parts of her life. And from what I understand, this took place right in the center of that time. So I was watching her in this and saying, I wonder how much of this is acting and how much of it is her just really doped up.
Which is really doped up.
Yeah, so that was interesting. And it feels like, it feels a little bit like RoboCop in that the violence is so extreme, and it feels a little bit like.
I agree actually.
It feels like an everything movie. They threw everything they could in.
Yeah.
Which isn't a bad thing. I mean, he balanced it well enough. It moves at such a pace that you're like, okay, that's the next thing, and you just kind of take it for what it is.
You have no choice. There's no choice. Just take it.
Right. It's exactly what a B movie should be. It's just And what I mean B movie, I believe the term B movie came from when they used to have double features, and I'm going to sound like an idiot if I'm wrong, but that's how I always understood it. You'd have an A movie, which is the headliner of the movie everybody wants to see, and then you have the B movie, which is the B movie. And usually they're just really fun, popcorny type movies. And that's
it's kind of like stand-up comedy where you have the comedians that are less known that start first for the main event, like
right,
something like that.
And it's I mean, like I said, it was entertaining enough. I can definitely understand why they made a sequel.
Yeah,
it's not like it's not like not that there were very many questions, but I mean, it's like, oh, okay, well, if we wanted to, we could tell you more about these alien races. We can explore this mythology a little bit more. So it makes sense that they would do something. So I'm interested in that as well.
Okay.
It'd be interesting to see, since this is the kind of movie that when you talk about reboots, I think, why not? Why not reboot this movie?
No.
I think this is the thing. I think reboots should be done for movies that have really neat ideas.
Yeah.
But maybe need a little bit more work.
Well, then, do you think that this one was a really neat idea, or was it just cliche?
Well, it's definitely cliche, but I mean, you can't, just because it's cliche doesn't mean you can't do something cool with it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I don't feel like they did anything out of the ordinary. I mean, the only thing in it that struck me as, oh, okay, I haven't seen that before, is the look of the alien. It's obviously just some dude's hand in a glove, but it's just so nasty looking. And I mean, that's the thing I kept hoping while I was watching this. Is I was like, I just hope they'll do something big and extreme that I've never seen before, and go, okay, right. You know, like,
one of the things that I actually like, not like, but I definitely saw, was that the way they depict good and evil. Because like you said, like you explained in the summary, it's two different alien races. To go more in depth, the alien race, Kyle Maclachlan's character, his alien race, his character specifically is hunting that alien race because it killed his family. He mentions that to the regular human Beck, Sergeant Beck. He mentions that to him, that it actually killed his family. So he's on like a, first off, number one, that shows emotion through the character. That shows more emotion through the character because he's on a personal vendetta. He's trying to get revenge for what happened to his family. He has a personal vendetta with this other alien race. And number two, back to what I was saying about the good and evil. Kyle Maclachlan's character, his alien race, they're this magical beam of light that it just looks pure and holy. And then you have the bad race that this movie is made for, which is a fucking ugly, bloody slug that...
Yeah, it's like a squid slug.
Like a squid slug that transfers from mouth to mouth to go into another person's body to become the host. So you have a beam of light, Jesus, to, hey, this piece of shit slug that we found in the dumpster that is going to kill you. So the depiction of good and evil. So yeah.
I also kind of wish, and this is why I say you could totally reboot this movie. I wish that the bad alien was a little more interesting. I mean, the look of it was neat, but
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, apparently all it wants to do is listen to loud music, kill things, and rob things, and drive cars fast.
Yeah.
I mean, even when it enters
I,
the stripper's body, that's all it does.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt, but a part of me wants to argue with you, but I can't. No, that's the thing. I can't.
Oh, I see.
I want to argue with you, but I can't. Like, as I'm thinking of the scenes in the movie, that's all it was doing. Like, I want to argue with you that it wants to do more. It just wants to fulfill its personal needs that looks fun to the human race. But apparently what it sees of the human race is, steal cars, listen to loud music, and not even have sex. Just I'm gonna steal this car. I want to shoot these guns. I want to listen to loud music. That's all it's been showing.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't argue with you as much as I want to.
And I mean, I almost expected there to be something where he's like, if I don't kill this thing, he'll eventually procreate, and then in a month, every human being on the planet will just be going after their urges, and it'll become this global-wide chaos or something. They didn't even do that, which I guess is fine.
The only difference with the alien race that wanted to take over and whatnot and just steal cars and blah blah blah. The only difference it showed is that it wanted to take over the world. Like it had more of an interest to.
It did. He says, "I want to become president."
Yeah, because another spoiler alert is that the fact that the bad alien race, while it was in a random body as its host, it was watching TV, I believe at a diner or a bar. I can't really remember off the top of my head. It was probably at a diner or a bar or something like that. But I saw on TV that there was a senator that was coming to town. The senator is in a good position to become more than a senator, become president one day. So he had a big interest in going into that body to make it its host so he can become president and take over the world. That was pretty stupid. I mean, I understand it, but that was kind of stupid because, you're president of the United States. There are still other presidents all around. So, I mean, you're trying to take over the world by being president of the U.S. There are different countries in the world, buddy. But anyway, just saying.
No, you're right, and I completely forgot about that. But no, you're right, and I'll give it credit for that, actually. You say it's stupid, I give it credit, and here's why. B-movies, or just simple movies like this, are meant to communicate the simplest ideas possible.
Yeah.
The simplest minds watching it. You and I have had this discussion before. I don't think we talked about it on the show, but because I usually put my foot in my mouth when I talk about it. But there is this term out there. People hear it all the time. I don't think they stop to think of what it means. It's called general audiences.
Yeah.
General audiences means people who just watch things.
Yeah.
They don't think about what they're watching. They just, perfect example is a sitcom. I was having a discussion with someone at work, which I try to avoid, but and she was telling me about this movie that I gave up on after one scene, and she was very emotionally invested in this movie. And I felt bad because I couldn't really fully explain why I gave up on it in one scene.
What movie was that?
It was called Jeff Who Lives at Home.
I think I heard of that. I heard of that.
Well, I was watching one of my favorite review shows. It's called Half in the Bag, and they talked about it, and they just hated it. And all the examples they brought up were about how it's just basically this very, very cliche movie that's trying to be profound but not. But I'm not going to let their opinion influence my opinion of the film. So I saw some clips online, which of course are taken out of context, so I can't really judge them on that. I watched the trailer, and just nothing I was seeing about this movie seemed at all genuine. It didn't seem at all. I had no interest in watching it.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm going to give it a chance. So I saw it was on Netflix. I watched it. And the first scene, you have this Jason Segel is the actor. He's talking about the movie Signs. And he's getting very into Signs and about how he's like, every time I watch that movie, it's like I notice something new. And first of all, Signs came out so long ago now that I've heard people talk about it so long. And the movie is entertaining enough, but it's not this big, profound movie. And the character's talking about it. He's getting in-depth into it. And then the camera cuts back, and you see he's sitting on the shitter the whole time talking to himself. Ha ha ha, so hilarious. I was like, I'm just done with this movie. If you cannot come up with a better opening than to talk about a movie I no longer care about in a way that is just boring and stale, and then the joke is, he's taking a dump. No, I'm not going to watch it. Anyway, I couldn't quite go as in-depth with that as I did here with her, and I felt bad. She's like, it's got the guy from How I Met Your Mother in it. And I was like, I was like, oh God, I hate that show. And she's like, what?
I never watched that show.
It's not good. And I said, okay, real quick, let me explain. There is something called broad humor. And it is called so because it's meant to reach the largest possible audience. And I think Family Guy is in this camp. Easy jokes. Just quick, like, you're gonna think this is funny. So I say it. Yeah. And I said, I'm usually on the fringe of such things, which is not a good place to be. It's a very lonely place, and broad humor doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
Just like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm insane. And so the reason I go into this huge rant about that is this movie is meant to appeal to general audiences. Now, what's the easiest way to show that this is a bad guy? He's going to shoot a bunch of people in a bank. So not only is he shooting people, but he's robbing a bank. That's what bad guys do. They rob banks. He's listening to heavy metal music. That's angry music. He's driving cars real fast. You're not supposed to do that. So they're communicating that this is a bad thing. Just like how you said. It's the alien's gross looking. And it does these things. And then Kyle Maclachlan doesn't do any of these things. And when he opens his mouth, he's this beam of light. And it's a very convenient way of explaining to the audience, this is bad guy, this is good guy. And by making to general audiences, America is the greatest country in the world. It's if you control America, you control the world. You know what I mean? Like, so to have a movie that appeals to these general audiences and say he wants to become president, that's like, oh man, he becomes president, we're fucked. He's going to drive tanks real fast and run people over and listen to loud music. I mean, so I actually do, and I'm not saying this as a bad thing. I'm saying this is what the movie intended to do, at least that's the feeling I get, and it did it well. And I actually commend it for that. God, that was a long rant.
Hey, it's fine. It's fine. It's funny. When you said that, the signs of evil, like he's driving a car, going past the speed limit, going at fast paces, and playing this loud music, heavy metal, and that's evil, and da da da. Like, you see how much over time because the movie was made in 1986. Hey, year I was born, everybody. Year I was born, not Critic Race, 1986. Yeah. But the change throughout the years, because now it's 2014. Throughout all those years, fast cars, loud music has become a natural thing for the human. I'm not going to say the human race. Well, actually, I can say that. I can push the limit and say that. You know, I'm going to push the limit and say that. I can. The fast cars, loud music has become a natural thing for the human race. I mean, shit. We watch Fast and the Furious.
Right there in the title, yeah.
Right in the title. So, you know, what seemed as, oh my God, he's going above the speed limit. He's such a bad person. Became to, this is hot. This is cool. Loud music.
Yeah.
It's cool to be bad. The loud, heavy music, heavy metal music or whatnot, at first was, oh my God, they're just so angry. To now, let the bodies hit the floor. Like, it's awesome. Like, it's nice. So, I'm just seeing a different transition that you have actually from what was the smooth sailing 80s to now, you know, the new millennium. So
I guarantee if they rebooted this movie, he'd be listening to Marilyn Manson. Because Marilyn Manson is the one musical act out there that general audiences are still afraid of for some reason.
Yeah, I actually agree. I agree. If he was listening to Marilyn Manson, I'd be like, oh shit, yeah, he's bad.
Manson, from what I've seen, is a very nice man.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so that was our double episode. I don't know if we'll do this again. Maybe if we can get more concise. But
yeah, well, just you know, the times that we'll do a double episode is either when I am stuck with work, which is what happened yesterday when we were supposed to do Blue Velvet, when I'm stuck with work or sick or Critic Dustin is sick or stuff at work. That's when we'll do double whammy. But you know, we're still going to stay true to our viewers. We're going to do 2 movies the same week, just to because we have a lot to talk about. There's a lot of things that we have seen as together and as individuals, to where we can critique about it. So we're going to constantly give you more and more of our opinion, our ideas, and just, you know, see what you have to say. Please leave your comments, please, because that actually helps us to get a better understanding of what you guys want us to talk about, what you want to see, what you want to hear about. You know, it gives us a better understanding of who you are as the people that are viewing us. So, and it gives us more viewers. So yeah.
Will is much more of a hustler than I am. I'm like, oh well, the video exists. If you watch it, that's cool.
You know, hustle, baby, hustle. Oh.
And just I wanted to say that something that occurred to me while you were saying that is, you're right. We've seen a lot of movies together. We've seen a lot of movies separately, and I don't know if it's true for you, but for me, the most impactful movies in my life, you know, aside from Star Wars and things like that, I saw completely independent of you. Like, like the movie I want you to watch next week, which is Terry Gilliam's Brazil.
Yeah.
Have you even heard of that movie?
No, this is the first time I'm hearing of it.
Yeah, I didn't even tell you what I was going to have you watch until right now.
You know
that. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the one movie that interested me was that superhero movie that it's. I don't want to say it's. Yeah.
Or
what?
There was
the girl from Juno.
Oh, okay, Super. It's called Yes, Super.
Super. Yeah, the guy from The Office, the actor from The Office, and the girl and the actress from Juno. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You asked me to watch that, and I watched it, and I'm just like, this is pretty interesting and pretty fucked up. I like it. Like, I like the fact that, you know, with us, ladies and gentlemen, with us, like, we've been best friends since 6 years old. We've been best friends. but we have different taste. But because of the fact that we've been best friends, I trust his opinion. He trusts my opinion. So once he gives me a certain movie title to watch, I'm going to watch it, even though I may be like, this is just too fucking weird. But I'm still gonna watch it, and I'm gonna give my opinion about it. That's what helps, because of the fact that yes, we have different tastes, but because we have that connection, we're best friends. We know each other. We're to the point where we're brothers. So if it's a certain film that he wants me to watch, I'm gonna watch it, and I'm gonna give my opinion for the viewers or y'all. So definitely, please leave your comments. Do what you have to do. Even if you hate us, just comment on that. Fucking hate you. You suck. Okay, leave a comment. But yeah,
that would be lovely.
it would be lovely. It would be. And well, no, I don't want anybody to hate us, but hey, I mean, just give your honest opinion on what we think of the movies, how you feel. Actually, I would rather you give your opinion on what you feel about the movie, so we have a different interpretation. But you know, do what you feel is right for you to say, pretty much. Whether it's bad or good, you know, any feedback is better than no feedback.
That's true.
So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So until next week, or with the two non-critics, non-critic Dustin.
I'm non-critic Will.
And we'll see you next week. You got about 1 second to live, buddy.